Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your gardening supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, you know, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasure.waynecounty.com and see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasure.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, and I hope everyone is warmer today than they were a few days ago, at least here in the Detroit area, where we somehow or the other managed to survive the polar vortex / bomb cyclone that had befallen us. So great to have that. You will notice that today's panel is missing a couple of our regulars, Nancy Derringer, veteran journalist, and labor and community activist Barb Ingalls are both traveling in different directions. So we actually have today the first meeting of the He-Man Woman Haters Club by strictly coincidence. For those of you who are Little Rascals or Our Gang fans, and yeah, we need a dog, Alan. We need a dog for the show. We need Petey.
All right.
So
I've got one outside. I can bring him in.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
So
So the fact that Fishman always thinks that we only talk about modern references here, that one's for you, Steve. Well, joining us, even though he is not currently in his seat, is one of our usual troika of lawyers who joins us, Steve Fishman, along with attorneys Joel Sklar and Bill Seikaly. And welcome back to you, former music and media critic for the Detroit News, Jim Mcfarlin. And of course, we're also joined by co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. So it looks like election year 2024 has now officially kicked off in high gear, even though Bill seems to be shaking his head in denial or disgust. We don't know, probably a combination of both. That all-important state of the heartland where the Field of Dreams is located, Iowa, held its caucus. And it looks like on the Republican side, well, the Republican caucus was held at least, and the winner was none other than former President Donald Trump, coming in at somewhere around 51% of the vote. Looks like the turnout was quite low. About 14% of registered Republicans participated. Now, in all fairness, the weather in Iowa was probably the third worst on that day. The worst, of course, being in Kansas City, where they played a football game in 4 degrees, 20 below with the wind chill. Several people hypothermiated, including the team that lost to the Chiefs. But we find that it also had a couple of other casualties. It looks like Vivek Ramaswamy has suspended his campaign, as has former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. And we had runner-up Ron DeSantis, and third place going to Nikki Haley. So where do we go from Iowa? What do you think about what happened in Iowa?
I just want to say quickly, the biggest surprise was that Asa Hutchinson was still in the race. We're like, what? You're still around, dude? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Trump's party, you know?
Yeah.
It's Trump's party.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unbelievable, and I can't believe. Yeah, it mystifies me. I think anybody who has can functionally think, but it's his party, man. It's good. I mean,
it is true that Trump won. The American people lost, and I say that only with a little bit of sarcasm. And the fact of the matter is that I don't think you can view it any other way, that our democracy is in trouble. when you have a person who is so anti-democratic and so clearly willing to do whatever it takes to seize power, who can control one of the two major parties and win by these kinds of margins, I think that's a sign, as I've said on this show before, and I just think it's worth saying again, this push to the right and this push to put dictators or extreme right-wing people in positions of power throughout the world, not just in this country, is, I think, one of the scariest things going on.
Okay. Well, I mean, it looks then, Bill, that we as a country and we as a planet are going through a phase where you're, I think, absolutely right, anti-democratic forces, or to put it another way, the acceptance so easily for these kinds of things, which means that there's quite a few enablers that are part of this team. Jim, you're nodding your head.
Well, what astonishes me, Saeed, is that I've heard people in the caucus era in Iowa say, well, yes, I know he's under indictment and I know he's alternating appearances between court appearances, but, you know, I'm able to overlook that because he's done so much for our country. And I just stare at the screen going, how is that possible? How can you overlook anything like that when you know his character? He shows it every day. And people go along with it. It blows my mind.
Yeah. There's there's a desire for dictatorship by some people. They want to be ruled by a strong man. I can't believe this is happening in America, but you know, I was listening to Howard Stern, who I love, and they interviewed one of the Iowa, voters, and he said, I hate to say it, but we need a dictatorship. And I think that's a common thought that only Trump can fix it. I think is a cultish belief, almost fanatical, religious in a way. But the belief that only Trump can fix it is got a hold on 25% of the electorate.
That's what he says.
30%.
He says it over and over. Only I can fix it.
But
Jim,
when you were talking to that particular person, what were these things that person claimed that Trump has done for the country, other than lower rich people's taxes? What else did he do?
Now, this is someone I heard on the news in Iowa, an Iowa caucus person was being interviewed and said, yes, I know he's under all these indictments and he's committed all these crimes, but that's okay because I really believe that he can help the nation. I blame Mark Burnett.
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely.
Because Donald Trump was a nobody. He was on his way out as a bad TV host until Burnett resurrected his career on the Apprentice. And now, what has he done?
We have a video.
Meanwhile, Fiberace's been playing all the hits on the campaign trail, including an extended whine about the fact that he was forced to leave the White House.
When I left, which was ridiculous that we had to leave, but we had to leave. We have to follow the laws of our land.
And he's nothing if not law-abiding. He's really sticks right to the letter. You had to leave because 80 million people voted to evict you from the White House. Trump had a lot to say in a limited amount of time. So to really soak it in, we slowed him down to half speed for a new New Hampshire edition of Drunk Donald Trump.
They say, get him off the stage. He needs another act. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to the cocaine?
I mean, I yearn for the days when Clinton went on Arsenio and played the saxophone as a cheap hustle to get the youth vote. Gone is that nostalgia. I
think what's troubling, and I hate talking about Donald Trump himself because I really think he's symbolic of the problem. I don't think he himself is the problem. But, the hypocrisy, we're talking about a group of people who say, we want less government. We want government out of our lives. And yet they want to control what women can do with their bodies. They want law and order, and yet what they let Trump get away with. I mean, I'm embarrassed by these judges who haven't yet put him in jail on contempt charges.
Mm-hmm.
I dare say that if I or any of my clients ever acted as he has acted in court the last couple of days, we would have been sitting in the pokey. I've had clients go to jail for 24 hours for doing a lot less than he did. So, this hypocrisy of what they say versus what he does.
Yeah,
I find
you're talking, Bill, I believe, about the second defamation case brought by E. Jean Carroll, the lady who alleged that he had actually raped her in the fitting room.
The jury found it.
Well, I was saying that was her claim, and then the jury found that he had raped her. And the fact that here's another case based on the fact that he then is defaming her again. And the sass that he showed the Judge Kaplan, I mean, almost goading him to go ahead and hold him in contempt and saying, you'd like that, was remarkable. So
yeah, it's insane.
Steve, any of your clients ever get away with that stuff? Joel? I mean,
Well, generally, I threaten the fellows before they get in there. The closest I ever had, I had a guy. I want to say he was Egyptian. I can't remember. We're getting ready to take a plea in front of George Stee in federal court, and the guy, I can't remember exactly. He didn't say anything to the judge necessarily, but he started lying his ass off basically. And because I know the judge for a long time, and it was just a few of us in the court, I grabbed the guy by his shirt and I banged him up against the lectern. And then I dragged him out of the courtroom and told him, blah, 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 blah. I've never had anybody go to jail for, cussing out a judge. And I agree with Bill. Any client that talked anywhere near the way that Trump talks to, but you got to remember, what do we always say? He's gotten away with it his entire life. He was a spoiled, rotten kid by a criminal father. He became a criminal on his own, and nobody has ever. That's why I agree with you. Lock his fucking ass up for 24 hours. Let him sit there with the Secret Service and two other guys that are there for stealing a car, and then we'll see.
It also goes to the point that his lawyer is unbelievably weak. They're an awful lawyer. She has no control. Obviously, nobody can control him. But it speaks to his level of counsel that he's getting. Joe Tropicana had to leave. I mean, this guy's scraping pretty low. I don't think the lawyer that he's got knows what she's doing from the news reports that I'm hearing. And she certainly is not in a position to tell him to stop or be quiet or don't do that.
Well,
she's not doing that. There's no governor in that courtroom other than the judge.
Here's the thing. There are clients, and I've fired clients who they don't listen. Okay. And the reason he has shitty lawyers is because all the ones who are decent lawyers, they realize, they go, I don't know what they were deluding themselves. Number one, he doesn't want to pay his bills. He's a complete fucking asshole. And then it gets to a point where good lawyers, if the client's not listening, it doesn't matter criminal or civil, then what's the sense of me being a lawyer? If you're going to do what you want, have one like this young woman. She doesn't know her ass from a hole in the ground. And he tells her what to do, and she does it. And, most of those things that the lawyers are saying to the judges in these different cases, they're not coming from the lawyer. That's what he's saying. I want you to say this. I want you to say. It's like having a 6-year-old as a client.
Right. Who you're listening to.
Steve,
go ahead.
I would have loved to have seen that. Is there any video of you dragging your client out of the courtroom? I'd love
no,
to
the good news is in federal court, they don't allow cameras in the courtroom.
Yeah, the other thing, Jim, is I just did a quick Lexis search, and this is probably the most unique example of effective counsel that has ever been described. So Steve's got that distinction going for him.
Here's the ineffective assistance of counsel does not work in civil litigation.
Interesting. Yeah, Alan.
I was going to say, any of us who did, even with the document case, I mean, the FBI, the Justice Department asked for the documents back. You don't give them back. You try to hide them. We would have copped a plea so long ago. We would have been serving some time for that. And people always say, "Oh, he's as we've said, he's not getting fair treatment. He's getting ridiculously over fair treatment. The guy should already be serving some of his terms already for what he's done. It's just
Well,
insane.
in that particular case, Alan, I mean, you have a Trump appointee, Eileen Cannon, down in Florida, in the documents case, who, from all reports, seems to be slow walking the trial, and
Right.
there's a likelihood that she's just going to try to run out this clock until November. Who knows? I'm not sure if she's looking for a cabinet position or an uptick to the Supremes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
We still haven't answered, though, the tougher of the questions. Why do the American people continue to support him? Why does I mean, you can argue, is it 30% or 40%, but too many people still support this guy. What is it that has happened to this country? We continue to prop him up and support him, and the fact that we're talking about the possibility he could become president ought to scare us.
The answer to your question, what did it? Two things, in my opinion: Fox News and social media. That's what did it. Because people are able, when we were growing up, whether you like Walter Cronkite or not, that you had 3 channels and you read the newspapers, and that's where you got your news. I honestly believe that the people who live in that cloistered Fox News world and who go on social media with other people who think just like them, that's how they wind up thinking that left is right and bad is good. And that's my answer. When I become king, I'm eliminating social media. That's it.
I think
Thank you, Your Highness.
My only
and they don't get their news from anyone else but Fox News.
Right.
And it frightens me. When I'm at their house, I'm going, could we put on CBS? Nope. We're gonna watch Fox News. I go, okay. I'll just
Wow, you actually go to their houses? Wow, Jim.
I'm serving. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the Fox News base is a racist base. It's a base that is against any transformation of society. So Fox News has just given a voice to it and cultivated it and fostered it. But what you're going back are years, decades of this fear that we are becoming truly a country that is diverse. And there is such white fear, such hatred of that thought, that democracy doesn't mean a fucking thing. I said,
I'm sorry, Joel. I got to stop you there. According to Nikki Haley, this is not a racist country. Alan, yeah.
Nikki Haley in what year?
You ready?
Yeah,
In a new interview with Fox News, presidential candidate Nikki Haley said that the U.S. has, quote, never been a racist country. So if her campaign doesn't pan out, she could always get a job teaching history in Florida.
I mean, that's it. I mean, you have this fear and this fight against any change, and that's what we're seeing. So that's why people will sacrifice freedom to maintain what they think is their existence and not be threatened by anybody who looks different than they, anybody who speaks different than they. It's completely a sick response, but that's how.
I think look, we've seen the history around the world, and we thought we were sort of immune from the crazies, from the fringes and stuff like that. Then comes Donald Trump, who is brilliant he's a charismatic guy, for how much you hate him. He's charismatic, and he has learned how to devalue the currency of truth in like no other candidate has ever done, where people don't care if you say, oh my God, that guy's a serial liar. They're like, yeah, so what? What about Hillary? Or who cares? I don't care. People don't care. And how he has got us. I mean, being in journalism, Jim and I mean, journalism was supposed to be, exposing lies and
corruption,
promoting truth. And we've seen this thing where he's attacked the media. He's degraded the media. He's degraded the value of truth. And the fringe candidates who were used to be fringe candidates are now the mainstream candidates here in America.
Yeah,
but there's been a build up for him over at least a generation. I mean, to me, he's a 6'3" orange version of Roseanne, and people were looking at this show and sort of centering it, I should say, 30 years ago. Well, now people who kind of grew up on that, as opposed to growing up on Leave It to Beaver or one of my favorites, Family Ties. I mean, the chickens are coming home to roost. By the way, I don't know if any of you feel this way, but every time I see Nikki Haley talking about how this isn't a racist country, I think of Elton John's song "Candle in the Wind" and the line and they made you change your name. I mean, she's no longer Namrata. She's going as Nikki.
Never will be again.
Never will be again.
If not Trump and if not Joe Biden, I mean, they're all going to be 80 years old, no matter which of them wins. Who do we have? What's the alternative? Who, among the people still left standing, who would you want to see in the White House?
Well, Jim, that's a great question. As a matter of fact, I think it's the question. But I think that I think one of the things that's important is who can get there, and that's problematic. Who can beat Trump? And I'm not sure I know the answer. I want to back up a little bit, though. I like Steve's explanation for what's going on. I'm just not sure that it's right. I think there's something more going on, because if you look at it from a historical perspective, we're back in the 1930s. You know, where Europe was as Hitler came to power, and that's where the United States was heading. I mean, let's not, if you'll excuse the expression, whitewash too much of our American history. Remember what they were talking about at Shrine of the Little Flower in the early 1940s. There's been this tendency to go back to the right wing. I've heard people say, look, it's economic disparity. Heard the issue of, you know, it's the fear that of whites that non-whites are taking over. Though you see more and more minorities involved in the Trump campaign, which scares me. It is this desire that I'm right, you're wrong, you're the enemy, and we'll do anything and everything to stop you.
But that's why I cited what I cited, though, because, you know, if you don't have any contact with the quote enemy and you don't ever hear anything other than what's on Fox News and on your own social media thing, it's simple for people to do that. It really is. People can convince themselves. You know, we've said this before. The best thing that goes on in this country, the biggest difference between when we were all kids and now, is we have way more integration, not just in terms of race, but in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religion, in terms of social status. The more integration that you have of people, the harder it is to buy into all this crap that Fox News sells. And it's just unfortunate that whatever the percentage of the public it is that goes along with that, that's the only thing they know. They don't see any Jews. They don't see any Arabs. They don't see any black people. They don't see any gay people. They probably do, and they don't even realize it. That's how fucking dumb some of them are. But I mean,
in '95, after the Oklahoma bombing, there were a group of reporters that bombing happened on a Wednesday and Friday. The reporters converged on there, and reporters, foreign correspondents from New York came in and everything. And we were in the Decker Bar, and, you know, the Decker Tavern, and it was, you know, it's a very, very white enclave there. And suddenly there were black people and Asians, and there was some red. We had a Asian photographer go to the bathroom, and one of the rednecks at the bar yelled out some really racial slur, like, who let that guy in? Those people are fearful. That's America. That's part of America that we don't see. We're living in metropolitan Detroit, where we see integration and stuff like that. There's a lot of Michigan. There's a lot of, you know, everywhere America where they don't see any of that.
But again, I agree with that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that wherever it is that you're talking about, if you throw a bunch of Jews and black people and Arabs out there and you actually have conversation, I think real briefly, I've told you guys before, when we went to my father's camp, was a bunch of Jews in West Branch, Michigan. We would go to Gladwin, Standish, Pinconning. They'd never seen a Jew in their life before. Once we played ball against them, then we'd go swimming. And then they would look at, are you guys really Jewish? And we said, what are you talking about? We said, you guys are good athletes. I said, what do you think? Oh, Jews play the fiddle?
Right. And you don't have horns.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, in fairness, I grew up thinking that the extent of Jewish athletes was, a pamphlet in the movie Airplane, that they were handing out. I didn't think it was any bigger than that, but there you go. I didn't live in West Branch. I lived in Lapeer, which was about the same. So,
And they used to joke that the Sports Hall of Fame in Michigan was a phone booth, but
Hey, wait a minute.
You're in there. It's bigger than a phone booth.
So's my father too, and my son's
Oh,
on
really?
Yeah,
oh, wow. Awesome.
But Steve makes a good point about just understanding. I grew up in a very small town in West Michigan, and until I got to Detroit, I had never seen a Jewish person.
Really?
And now I married a Jewish woman. I have great Jewish friends. Mark Keller, last time I was in Detroit, gave me a blue pin, a stand up to Jewish hate that I wear proudly. But if you don't have the experience, if you don't have the ability or the atmosphere in which to meet other people of all races, creeds, and colors, you don't know. You're surrounded by the people who reinforce your prejudice.
And the thing is, if you, Jim, Seikaly, and me, and our three wives all went out to eat, and somebody from Lapeer or from West Branch came in, they'd put everybody with the wrong person. They would take my black wife and put her with you. The Jew would be with me. And I don't know, Seikaly would be all by himself anyway. It wouldn't matter.
Yes, because there is no wife.
They'd like my wife.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. There is no wife swapping in Lapeer, so we don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I'd go to Florida for that.
Yeah. Well, Trump
I do hope Tony's not listening to this show.
Well,
she's not the only one not listening.
In the old days, Bill, all you had to do was crazy glue the radio knob so it didn't go from FM to AM, and you could keep her out. But I don't know what you can do now. Well, Trump was particularly furious that some networks were not covering the Iowa victory speech, in particular CNN and MSNBC. To be fair, I think CNN covered a couple minutes, and then they saw where this thing was going. Rachel Maddow from MSNBC came out with a statement and said, look, I mean, we knew that this was going to turn into a daisy chain of prevarication and mendacity. So it's our responsibility as journalists not to cover something that we know is going to be false and defamatory. Is this going to be the debate moving forward? Because I can't imagine this is going to be the only speech that isn't covered. And to be fair, not covered live. I think that MSNBC wanted to have a 3-day delay on the coverage.
I think it's just so crazy the way these debates are going. Trump's refusing to be part of it, and he's trying to do parallel events during these debates and stuff like that. And what was it? Matt Gaetz was on CNN last night, and he was going, "Why are we still having? It's over. Iowa is over." And the person said, the host said, "Well, it's supposed to be a process where you don't win one primary and that's it, but it's the weirdest primary. Who knows, maybe Nikki Haley will win New Hampshire or come close. I think she's about 8 points trailing Trump at this point, but it's just a weird fucking election.
And there's a big move amongst independents and Democrats to get out and vote in the New Hampshire primary, which may help her. Look, Nikki Haley is no bastion of liberal thought, that's for sure. It's not that I'd want to see her as president, but she's I'm an anybody but Trump kind of guy. I think we've got to get him out of there, and I think that you've got to get this. If you don't get this party away from Trump, this country is in real trouble. Because I'm sure that you guys have all heard the same thing that I've heard and that I've read. One of the big concerns is if he runs and doesn't get elected, what's going to happen?
It's going to be
I'm not sure that there's any way, if he gets the nomination, that we can guarantee there won't be some real problems in the streets.
Right. And if he serves, he'll never
back
make
that
it.
up a minute, Bill. What if he goes to jail while the campaign's in progress. I mean, those
I'll begin to believe in God again.
What? I agree. That'd be a beautiful thing. But how do the MAGA people react to that? I mean, they're almost looking for a reason to have their fuse lit, and it amazes me. I mean, I hope that pride goeth before a fall, because Trump has not felt the need to debate. He knows he's far out in the polls. He expects to be reelected. I don't know and give any attention to these little people, these DeSantis and this Haley who thinks they have something, because I don't need it. And his arrogance is on display on a daily basis, in how he works in the courtroom, how he deals in the public, how he's furious that his address wasn't being televised. Everything he does has a hint of arrogance, a hint of superiority. I'm better than everybody. And if anything happens to him between now and election day, I'm afraid for this country, because there's a whole group of people who will respond not too well if he doesn't work too well.
Steve.
I've said this many, many times. I think that the key to that, Jim, you're absolutely right. As long as it's just accusations, indictments, et cetera, and so forth, what we need is a trial and we need a conviction. Because remember, if he's convicted, wherever the hell it is, I mean, 12 people, 12 citizens agreed that he's guilty of whatever case it is, okay? And all these polls that I've been reading in the newspaper about, it seems like there's a decent percentage, even in Iowa, of people who say, I'm not voting for this guy if he's been convicted. And that's why the most critical thing is get a case to trial. Whatever case it is, let's get something to trial. Let's convict his ass. And then we'll find out if this country really is beyond repair. Okay. But based on what you've been reading, it's not, and I read Sarah Longwell, former Republican pollster. She now works with the Bulwark. And I think that's we need a trial and we need a conviction by a jury of 12. They can't then say, well, I mean, some of the idiots will say it, but it'd be much more difficult to say that this is a fix when you just got 12 regular citizens.
I was going to say, a lot of people are wondering, even if Trump goes away, what happens to the MAGA? Do they sort of fade away, or are they going to look for a new MAGA guy, a new MAGA leader who's going to lead the charge there?
I think somebody's got to harness that.
I think
a vacuum. So I think somebody will step in that vacuum and try.
Well, you already have those pretenders. You've got people like Stefanik. You've got people like Vivek. I mean, they're all waiting in the wings. I mean, the best we could hope for is that MAGA is like the 17-year cicadas, and we just sort of move this, a half a generation and worry about it later. But they're going to be around. Allan.
I look at Trump as sort of like the head mobster, and all these others are the kids. I mean, we saw, the generational thing of the mafia here, the Giacalones and stuff, where the Giacalone brothers were super bright, and the kids were, kind of very much junior in a lot of ways. So
I don't think it's going to be easy. Trump has a unique appeal, I guess it is. He's a unique person. These guys who have tried to do it, DeSantis is Exhibit A, right? Wouldn't you say? I mean, DeSantis comes out with some of those policies in Florida Trump would never do in a million years. Correct. The business with the books and all that kind of crap. And he's tried to put himself to the right, and all he's done is go backwards. I think if Trump dropped dead tomorrow, the MAGA people would all be there, but it would be interesting to see who, if anybody. I don't think anyone could get to the position that he's at now. I really can't see it.
I'm not sure about that, Steve. I hope you're right, but we've got to remember MAGA is not new and doesn't stand by itself. I mean, this Newt Gingrich started this.
Yes.
It was the religious right. It was the contract with America, and this whole movement to the right and the march. I mean, I think even guys like I'm hoping that Gingrich has seen the error of his ways at this point, but this movement to the right had found Trump. I don't think Trump found them. I don't think Trump really has any ideology except to worship himself.
Mm-hmm.
One of our viewers, Anna, said that she belongs to the silent generation. She sees this as a boomer thing, quite possibly, and that it could be a boomer thing. But the boomers aren't going away anytime soon. Is also an initiative takes. Alan, why do we cut for a commercial right now? I think it's about that time.
All right.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your gardening supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, you know, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasure.waynecounty.com to see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasure.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
So switching gears a little bit from the United States, another judicial proceeding occurring in The Hague in the Netherlands. The Republic of South Africa brought forth a complaint against Israel regarding its campaign in Gaza with the accusation of genocide. Last week, there was a testimony provided by representatives from, or a delegation from South Africa, and a rebuttal the following day. Apparently, these determinations can sometimes take years, but it seems as though the more immediate relief that is being sought is to place an emergency stop or suspension on any further actions by Israel. And word comes today that Indonesia is also now bringing a case against Israel before the International Criminal Court of Justice in The Hague, claiming that Israel's control over Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem is illegal and violates international law that has been established since 1967. Where do we see these cases going? One thing to note is that Western media did not cover the testimony live at all, with the exception of, I think in Great Britain, they did cover the Israeli rebuttal, but not the South African case in chief. So it was a bit imbalanced as well. Yep, Steve.
So the definition of genocide is the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. So if you're talking about genocide, and you guys know what my position has been with respect to Netanyahu and Israel, but if you're talking about genocide, the only group that qualifies is Hamas, because that's exactly what their charter said, that they want to destroy Israel, they want to murder all the Jews. That's basically what the guy said. Now, what Israel has done, as you guys well know, I don't agree with, but the definition of genocide to me does not apply to what's going on in Gaza. So,
well, Steve, we don't usually disagree, but we do on this one, because while you're right, I want to agree with what I can with you. That is what Hamas's charter says. My father used to have an expression: if you want to find out what people are really like, if they say one thing and do another, believe what they do, ignore what they say. What Israel has done is genocide. I mean, they've displaced over 80% of the population, of the Palestinian population. They've killed so many that it is outrageous. And we're not talking about Hamas fighters. We're talking about innocent victims, women and children. And Netanyahu, I mean, he has really dropped the charade. He doesn't believe in a Palestinian state. His cabinets come out. We don't believe in the Palestinians as a people. We're going to take over and occupy for the foreseeable future. And if you want to talk about from the river to the sea, it is what the Israeli government is now doing. The gloves are off and the charade is gone. This is genocide. What they've done to the Christians, my small group of people that's still there, we recently found out there was still a Seikaly in the West Bank. We're trying to get them out. The Christians in Palestine have almost no place left to go. And they now have Nasser Hospital completely, which is in the south of Gaza, completely surrounded, and they're at 300% capacity. They're the only hospital still functioning, and it looks like they're going to be bombed soon. What they're doing is functional genocide, whether that's the policy or intent, whether it's written or not. What is happening.
Allan.
In terms of genocide there, you know what, when you talk about functional genocide, I mean, that can be interpreted that way. I'm not going to argue with you with that. But, you know, when we're talking about the argument before the Hague, I don't think if you want to talk about war crimes, you want to talk about, you know, there's war crimes on both sides. Hamas is built. Now they're saying it could be up to 450 miles of tunnels for a 25-mile strip. We're talking about Chicago's only about 250 miles from Detroit. They have spent all that money building up for this war, for this very moment. In terms of a genocide, I mean, the Israeli argument was at the Hague that and certainly this can be argued in terms of the legitimacy. They say we've told people to evacuate, we've dropped flyers, we've carefully targeted things, but they've used huge bombs that are not always accurate, and so people have been killed. So when we talk about war crimes, there are war crimes probably going on, but on both sides of. And so look, Hamas.
How does that help you, Allan?
Yes.
How does it help you to say there are war crimes on both sides? First of all, I won't argue that.
Crime. War is a crime.
No, but I think legally though, I mean, I did watch the testimonies. It was at 3:30 in the morning, and had to watch it on international news outlets since it wasn't covered here. I think it would have been very helpful if it was actually broadcast. Self-defense is not a defense in an accusation of genocide. Essentially, only two things have to be proven: is intent and execution. And the South African case was quite compelling, and it seemed as though the Israeli rebuttal didn't really address directly the accusations that were being made. Because they still invoked things that just simply would have been considered to be irrelevant to the charge that was against them. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how it goes forward. But again, I think that what seemed to me to be disturbing was the fact that here we had what by all means would be seen as a newsworthy international event, and if for nothing else, going ahead and in educating the public. They showed, cover to cover the coronation of King Charles III live on CNN and every other media outlet here. I'm not sure if it was prudent for especially American media, but more broadly Western media, to not cover this live, or even really have that much follow-up reportage on it. Yeah, Allan.
What I'm trying to say is, one, Hamas is complicit in this as well, and I'm not. All the killing.
Okay, Allan, let me give you that.
Yes,
Hamas has contributed to this. So what? We're talking about the Israeli government. We're talking about a government that has one of the most powerful armies in the world, and instead of directly going after Hamas, they're destroying an entire people. They've gone in. Look, you talked about it. I want to directly address the issues you raised.
Sure.
We've dropped flyers. That's right. They dropped flyers with barcodes and then cut off the internet. How do you say this is our defense to destroying these people? And look, my problem, Allan, as much as I love you and as much as I care about you, is this. I can say Hamas is wrong for what they've done, but you don't get there. You say, yeah, but.
I think
Bill, with you, it's one or the other, and I'm trying to say it's more complicated than that. And also, let me say this: the government, first of all, the nut jobs in the Netanyahu government, Smotrich and Kabir, whatever, those guys are not speaking for. They're not going to be around. And they're talking shit. And
neither are the Palestinians, because the Israeli government, which you say isn't representative, is killing them.
I think, Allan, again, if the South African case was heard, one of the points that was raised sort of preemptively, because I think that they saw that as being a possible defense, is that they actually said that Hamas, although not subject to the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court of Justice, because it's not a sovereign state or representing a recognized sovereign state, that there are other mechanisms by which Hamas can and should be held to account. It just, because the reciprocity doesn't exist within the jurisdiction of the ICJ, does not take away from the possibility that this is, in fact, genocide. It was really gripping coverage, I must say, to see the way that the cases were being laid out. And I think particularly because if there is this this notion of reciprocity and whether both sides would be and could be held accountable, I think that the hearings really address that well.
I have a question for Bill. Mr. Seikaly, and yes, I love you too.
Still,
man.
Bill.
Yeah,
still, Bill. I may get excited, but
can I just make one point? Just so I can just make a real quick point. War by nature, I think, is genocidal. We try to kill the enemy, kill the other side. It's awful. The crimes to the Palestinian people are obvious. Children bleeding, dying. Those are crimes. Those are crimes against humanity. I accept that because it's wrong. We have a history of doing this to ourselves. We dropped an atom bomb to stop, World War II. That was a genocide of the Japanese people to an extent. How many people died? So this is the nature of war and conflict. It's awful. It's unforgivable. You can certainly condemn it, but I don't think it's going to stop it. But I think recognizing the sheer inhumanity, what's going on here on both ends, there's no justification. I'm comfortable saying, this is a crime to humanity. What I'm watching should not be happening. I can't explain that Hamas is over time with the populace. There may be justifications, but I'm not seeing it, and that's just my view. It's an awful war. The price is huge, and it's sickening to watch. That's all I can say.
Well, I was going to ask Bill, not Mr. Seikaly. I was going to ask, what do you see as how do you see ending this? Just ceasefire, or when I talked to a friend in Washington, she covered for the Washington Post. She won a Pulitzer Prize for her coverage in the Middle East during the Gulf War, and she said her and her husband were out there protesting for a ceasefire. She said we went to 2 rallies and we protested, and I said, well, how about a ceasefire and return the hostages? Because I think if Hamas would agree to return all the hostages, the Israeli people, and they said, okay, we're ready here. We've got a deal in place. Let's make it happen. The Israeli people would be like, yes, we're done with this shit. Bring back the hostages and let's end it. Qatar has communications. Egypt has communications. Beirut has communications with Hamas. Why can't we make that happen?
Well, I think that it could happen. But, Allan, look, do you really think that Netanyahu's government would take that deal? I think he's been clear that he won't. And you may say, but this is like when we were talking about Trump. We may say he doesn't speak for all of us, but if he's in power and controls the government, he in fact does. I would have never thought that we were going to have a Muslim ban. My entire life, bad as I viewed the racism in this country, I never believed that the government would ever support that. It did. So I think that you can talk about the fact that Netanyahu doesn't have support. He still is the head of the government. They're still making the decisions about what to do. I think that they would, I think Hamas, or at least the Palestinian people, would push that through. I think Netanyahu has no intention of ever agreeing to that. Because
I think the Israeli people, though, I think the people are one, ready to hang him, and two, there's so much pressure coming about the hostages and stuff like that. I'm not sure.
Way. He's getting his way. He's got Gaza virtually destroyed. I want to go back to something Joel said, because I think, Joel, you made a good point. We dropped an atom bomb to end World War II. Who do we drop it on? We dropped it on Japan. We didn't drop it on Germany.
Eastern Europeans, correct.
And I think that it's part of the problem is that this country, and I think this goes to about the lack of coverage. You know, we don't even cover the war on a daily basis anymore. We have become kind of numb. Mm-hmm. And part of it is because, look, they're just Arabs. They're just Palestinians. They got big noses that wear those funny scarves. I'm
not sure. From a media standpoint, I think people just look the Ukraine war. How often are you reading about the Ukraine war? I think people just and Jim can attest to this. The media, tries to feed the fickle public on what it wants, and the fickle public, when they start seeing like hits dropping now they can see how many hits each story gets. When they start seeing like, people aren't interested in this anymore, let's talk about restaurants, let's talk about this. I'm not sure it's about any particular people, because this war had a very, very intense coverage for a long time, and I think now people are burning out on it. And those who
are covering the Ukrainian war more than we're covering the war.
I think though that there are, just so that we can get to some of the other things on the agenda here. People may not know that Zelensky has asked, and the Swiss have agreed to convene a peace summit on the Ukraine, in large part because I think Zelensky doesn't know if there's going to be any American support for Ukraine. The World Economic Forum is occurring in Davos, Switzerland, and a lot of the elite meeting there already are resigned to the very real possibility that Trump will be elected. And it looks like Western Europe is scared out of their minds about whether that means that Putin is going to have a free rein to perhaps even threaten them. But when a lot of the coverage this morning had to do with not just the playoffs this weekend, but specifically about the Taylor Swift effect in leading to teenage and younger girls now watching the NFL in massive numbers, I think it shows then where, as Allan said, the fickleness of the American public is. Well, I'm going to be part of that same hypocrisy, as Michael Corleone said. The Lions win their first playoff game in decades. They are moving toward a second home game at Ford Field this Sunday, playing either the Eagles or is it the Buccaneers. They're playing the Buccaneers. Yeah, Eagles got thumped, and with the possibility, if Green Bay beats San Francisco in Santa Clara, the NFC Championship game being here, 3 home games in a row is pretty tantalizing. So, any predictions?
Let me play. I've got a little video to
beat him in October. Right, that's outstanding work. I got 2 game balls. All right, number 1, listen, when you come in 3 years ago, like me and this guy did, and you had a vision and you start working together and you've got an idea how you want to build it and the type of players you're looking for and how you want to go top to bottom, offense, defense, special teams, and you're in fucking lockstep. You're in fucking lockstep. I'm telling you guys, it's a shitty business. It ain't always perfect, but we do a pretty good job, baby. Right. But without this fucking guy right here, man, Brad Holmes. Great job. I absolutely love every single person in this room, man. Hey, I'll just say it like this. All right? Hey, you're good enough for Detroit, Jim.
It's like he threw him a bouquet at a wedding. That was awesome. Yeah. So predictions. Two predictions I'm going to ask you before we cut to our last segment. Who's going to win? And second of all, this is a shout out to you, Fish. Where's Harbaugh going to be in September?
All right.
So predictions, yeah.
Detroit will win this game.
I think the Lions will beat Tampa. I don't think Mayfield's good enough to beat him. He's got good receivers, but I think if they can put pressure on him and if they can run the ball, I say the same thing every time we talk football. If you can run the ball, pressure the opposing quarterback, you can win. With respect to Jim Harbaugh, I don't think anybody should bet 50 cents on whatever he's going to do because he might know deep in the back of his mind, but you're never going to find anything out about it. And I suppose the best thing to do is just sit tight, let him go through his stuff, and if he leaves, he leaves. If Sharon Moore takes over, that'd be all right with me. You have to keep everything pretty much the same. And 40-3 in the last 3 years, I don't know if people think you're going to be able to do that another 3 years, particularly with the new conference. You're playing all those better teams. But anybody that tells you they know what Harbaugh is going to do is an absolute liar. I can tell you that.
Not even Harbaugh.
Any other prediction?
Bucks are winning. I mean, Bucks are losing. Lions are going to beat them. They beat them in October. They can't. I don't think the Bucks
paging Freud.
Yes, all of a sudden Sklar's on our side. He was the one who said Ohio State's going to beat us. Washington's going to beat us.
The Lions building, please. So
would it change your opinion, Joel, if you found out that it's not Curtis Mayfield but Baker Mayfield quarterback?
Yes,
it's all right. It's all right.
It's been reported that Baker Mayfield has already reached out to his former teammates to talk about the crowd noise in Ford Field last Sunday, and they all said it's the loudest they've ever heard anywhere of anything. He's already a little bit psyched out about what it's going to be like when he comes to Detroit, and those fans are not going to let him down. That plays
actually
off Ford Field Sunday.
Jim, I think most of them, when he asked the question, went, "Huh?" Because they haven't gotten their hearing back. But I got to ask one more question. I'm sorry. We had a sort of homecoming in Detroit on Monday, and that was Madonna performing at Little Caesars Arena. Did anyone happen to catch the show?
I'm so thankful I'm not a rock and roll critic anymore. That's almost 3 hour show.
How old is she now?
Have you heard about the lawsuit?
She's 63. She's 63.
Wow. Yeah, in pretty good shape for 63. But have you heard about the lawsuit that was filed?
She's I think 64, 65, actually.
65. I stand corrected. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's the lawsuit?
Yeah.
Did you hear about the lawsuit that was filed for the delay? I mean, I think that's hilarious. But
she routinely goes on at 10:45, about an hour 45 minutes late, and I think some people in Brooklyn sued because it said that it adversely affected their getting to work the next day because the concert let out at 1
their
o'clock.
ability to get home.
Yeah, take care of the kids, the whole shot.
That's funny.
Okay. Yeah, so there's some damages coming.
I saw Marvin Gaye in 1974 at Olympia Stadium. He showed up an hour late.
Mm-hmm.
So
people were going.
That's what headliners do. Aretha used to do it.
Sly Stone never got to a concert on time ever in his entire
He never got to
career.
the concert. He didn't show up.
Half the time he'd be too high. Live it up today if you want to. That's what he would say.
Different strokes for different folks.
I knew that was coming somewhere.
Peter Gabriel in the 80s went on so on time you could have set your watch to it. It was brilliant. So in fact he even came out before the lights went down and said, "I'll be starting in 5 minutes." So if anybody needed to make a bathroom break,
that is great. Yeah. I like that. That's
consummate professional. All right, Alan, why don't we go to a commercial?
All right. Well, I think we're ready for.
We're ready for it. Well, then let's go to the last segment.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
There we go, from our favorite global valet over there. So, Jim, who's your schmuck of the week?
My schmuck, Saeed, is any single Lions fan who booed Matt Stafford's wife and kids at Ford Field. That is so off limits. It just hurt my heart. These little girls, They love their dad. You just want to see daddy play. And for fans to boo them, you can boo Stafford. That's fine, but don't boo his family. That's beyond measure. That's awful.
Right.
They're adorable.
Last act, Jim.
Fully agree. Okay, Fish.
Well, I was going to go with the guy out in Northville Township that started some huge. Rob Snell wrote a column about that. He didn't like the fact that his neighbor parked the truck in front of his house in some fancy neighborhood and wound up in a federal lawsuit about it. But it's not going to be him. Jim reminded me of the schmuck of probably of our lifetime. Mark Burnett is the schmuck of the week for me because I agree 5,000%. The guy would have been tottering off to obscurity, and he made him. And we are paying the price. We've been paying it for all these years. And so he's it. Mark Burnett, you're my schmuck of the week. I hope your life goes crappy for the rest of it.
Just a quick thing. Layla Azuz, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for your comments all. Really happy that you do that. So never need to apologize for that. Okay.
A great lady. Layla.
Excellent. Joel.
I'm going to go with Alina Habba, the lawyer for Trump. One of the fundamental things you learn kind of in evidence in law school, and then certainly when you start to practice and learn, and maybe you read a book on trial preparation, you kind of know how to introduce a document. And I'm telling you, there's a book by Mauet, Mauet, Trial Skills. It's introductory, and it will tell her exactly what she needs to do every step of the way. And the fact that she didn't know how to do anything is an embarrassment to the bar. It's disrespectful to the court, and it shows what a fucking sociopath Trump is.
So
it's my view.
So Joel, there's for you, there's no hubba in attorney hubba, huh?
But apparently she looks like Melania, which is why he likes her. And she may have got some work done, so she looks more like Melania. And she's apparently getting paid by MAGA Inc., that she has some association with, like $2.5 million. I mean, something crazy is what I've been hearing. God knows if it's true, but it's
that's problematic enough. I mean, in this day and age, it should be MAGA LLC. You definitely get better benefits from that. Bill,
just nuts.
My schmuck, Joel, I have to say this, that there are some great memes out there about her being a clone of Melania, and you ought to take a look at them. My schmuck of the week is Bibi Netanyahu, and it's for a particular statement that the Israeli people will never accept a Palestinian state, a comment that he made earlier this morning. And for all he's done,
I agree. I agree with you. I hope. I know there's pressure being put on to have a quick election, and some of the people in the war cabinet are talking about resigning rather than work with Netanyahu. So
right now, an extraordinary moment unfolding in a courthouse in Manhattan.
What's going on there?
Extraordinary.
Is that something? Is that something we need to go and check out for breaking news? All right, Allan.
I'm going to say the Florida legislature, who has just introduced a bill to ban flags, racial, sexual, gender, political ideology, anything on any public, state, or local buildings, including schools, universities. Which is just, we saw that in Hamtramck, I mean, which it is being challenged now, but trying to create divisiveness. Here's a group, in Hamtramck that was the minority for a long time. Now they're the majority, and now they're imposing, they're saying, hey, we're the majority. That's what the majority wants. I mean, they're barely the majority there. But anyways, that and Donald Trump Jr., who is now talking up Tucker Carlson as a possible running mate for his dad, saying, hey, they get along. I mean, Tucker Carlson privately said some horrible things about Trump, but who hasn't? I mean, it's crazy.
That might explain why Elise Stefanik told Tucker Carlson, back off, bitch, he's mine. Because she's looking for the Veep spot as well. So does that mean that finally the Seminoles flag in Florida is banned as well? Please. That would be nice. Okay, well, I want to go ahead and piggyback on one of my schmucks on Jim, you describing the fans at Ford Field booing Stafford and his family. I would add to that Chicago Bulls fans booing the wife of Jerry Krause and his wife being there. That was really awful. And of course, a corollary boo schmuck to Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, who didn't even bother showing up to the actual tribute that was paid to the former general manager, now deceased, of the Chicago Bulls. As much as I'm not a Bulls fan, I mean, that was just completely egregious. But my schmuck of the week goes to Sahil Kataria, who was a passenger on Indigo's flight from New Delhi to Goa. Apparently, there was a lot of fog in New Delhi, much of it caused by pollution, because Delhi is the most polluted metropolis in the world. Apparently, 13 hours of a delay was a little bit too much for Mr. Kataria. And when the co-captain, Anup Kumar, got up to the front, pulled out the intercom, and started explaining and apologizing for the delays, Mr. Kataria runs from the back of the plane and physically assaults the co-captain. So he then fortunately arrested for physical assault. Apparently, he has now made the new no-fly list for Indigo, which is the name of the airline. By the way, for any of you who are looking to fly it next time you're in India, it's capital INDI, capital GO. So yes, Sahil Kataria for being a little bit frosty about something that was outside even the airline and the pilot's control. You're my schmuck of the week. Listen.
By the way, I was going to say real quickly, when you're in West Bloomfield, whenever someone mentions New Delhi, a person says where. But anyway, so
what do you mean? The stage has been around forever.
Stage isn't good enough.
Okay, well, or we can pronounce it as they do in some parts of the thumb, Del High. So there you go. Yeah, gotta love the thumb. Anyway, listen, thank you all for another great conversation, great discussion, and also affirming that, and I'm saying this all seriously, that we really can do this and still love each other by agreeing to disagree. I was going to say there's no need to take a holiday from this because I'm crazy for you, but that's about as many Madonna anecdotes that I'm going to go ahead and bring up. So I don't know. Come on, Joel. You know you're my lucky star. Even though there were a couple of times we came really close to the borderline. So
I've been touched by
right.
Let us go, Saeed. Let us go.
All right. You know, there's some things that I just simply won't do. But anyway, thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Jim Mcfarlin. And as always, thank you. And with the last word, Allan.
Drive home safely and go Lions.
Go Lions. Go Lions and gone Fishman.